Hi everyone, my name is Nathan and I work on the Kubernetes team here at AWS. I'm really excited to have the privilege to speak to you today about what we've been doing here at AWS to help further the practice and operation of Kubernetes. I think it makes sense if we start with a little bit of philosophy, not technical philosophy, but philosophy on how we see the world here at Amazon. It's easy to forget that AWS is still a part of Amazon, and as a customer, there's a pretty big difference between browsing for books and configuring APIs, like obviously, but behind that interface, we're still one company with a shared philosophy that's completely built around the customer, that's completely built around you. And even though I'm a million miles away, well, several thousand miles away, most likely, but that experience extends all the way from the work that we do on our team to you. And whether you're buying your best friend's birthday present or working to build the next killer app, you're our customer and you're our guest. And just like we're today at this event, we're the hosts. Bob is your host, and excellent talk by Bob, and I'm your host. And everyone that comes later today that will speak is also, we see ourselves as a host, and we're honored to be a part of your life. We're honored to be a part of your business. And a good part of my life and the lives of many other people that I know, both waking and asleep, is spent working on how to make your life just a little bit better. Everything we do, every line of code we write really starts with you. So I'm going to talk about a few things today, and I want you to keep this in mind. When we say we're going to build something, it's because you or someone like you has told us that it matters to them. If you tell us something new, we're going to listen. We're really excited to listen. We love to listen. And this is exactly why I'm so honored to be here, speaking and listening to all of you. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Kubernetes. Let's talk a little about EKS and what we've been seeing. I think one of the coolest things is that there are more customers than ever before using Kubernetes on AWS. And we see that in talking to our customers and talking to organizations like the CNCF and the data that they put out. And we're proud and excited to support our customers around the world that are building the next generation of experiences, services, and platforms on AWS using Kubernetes. Specifically with EKS, we've seen explosive growth in almost every industry around the world in the last 2 years since we launched EKS. We've seen businesses like HSBC take EKS and use this to power the next generation of how they deliver services. We've seen companies like Lyft use EKS to supercharge their platforms. We've even seen EKS adopted at Amazon.com to power some of the most fundamental experiences that Amazon brings to the web in terms of retail. Companies like Super Awesome that are really just out there to make the internet a better place for kids and for families. Social media apps like Snapchat, business application providers like GoDaddy, games, Epic Games, maker of Fortnite, these global gaming experiences that are bringing millions of people together, and companies like Babylon Health. It's a UK-based healthcare provider and is doing amazing things with mobile health applications, and they're doing that using EKS. So we're just super thrilled to see so many different types of organizations use EKS to push their businesses, to push their services, and to push their platforms forward to help invent on behalf of their customers. All right. Well, let's take a look at some of the recent history that's driving some of this growth. 2020 is just half over, and what a year. Even as our entire team went into lockdown, development never stopped. And we're really proud of the amazing work that our entire team has done this year to continue delivering on behalf of our customers. We know that for many of you, the need for the cloud grew significantly as people flocked to adopt tools and make connections that were powered by the internet. And our team has kept us going and kept delivering. Some of the highlights that we've seen over the year is that we actually, as our business scaled with lockdown, we were able to increase our service level agreement to 99.95%. We recently worked with the Center for Internet Security to release the CIS benchmark for Amazon EKS. We launched this amazing encryption provider, managed encryption provider, giving you KMS secrets encryption for your Kubernetes secrets on AWS. We've launched a bunch of support for new instance types for Inferentia, Graviton, bare metal G4DN, and also supporting outposts and wavelengths in general availability. We've been working really hard on making Kubernetes easier to use and providing tooling. So the CDK for Kubernetes was a really exciting launch earlier this year. We announced this project, which allows you to use common programming languages to define your Kubernetes manifests. And we're going to hear a little bit more about this today. We actually have a talk and a demo by one of the CDK engineers that I'm really excited about, and I actually get to say a few words there as well. We integrated with AWS service quotas. This may be a small thing, but the idea that you can go into the AWS console and change your limits and get an immediate action on that's been a really powerful integration, and we're really excited to support that. We also helped support the GA of the App Mesh controller for Kubernetes, so making it generally available that you can configure and manage a service mesh, AWS App Mesh, directly through the EKS or any Kubernetes cluster. We did a lot of work in storage and networking, so we released the beta for the FSX CSI driver. We went GA with the EFS CSI driver. We announced the next generation of our VPC CNI plugin with CNI plugin 1.6. This is a really exciting release because this brought a lot of changes and a lot more configurability to how IP addresses are assigned to pods within your cluster. We also made fully private cluster networking available with managed node groups. And then globally, we just saw a huge regional expansion for EKS. So going to almost every single region around the world, including GovCloud, China, Cape Town, and Milan, the two newest AWS regions, and then expanding Fargate to more regions with EKS as well. And version support hasn't slowed down. We actually launched more versions of Kubernetes so far this year than we did in last year. And last but not least, we actually kicked off the year with this, but it was an awesome way to start the year, which was dropping our price by 50%. And we were thrilled to be able to do that. That was a really awesome thing, and we're just excited to always be able to find a way to make our service more available and more ready for our customers. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about our philosophy for innovation, and also kind of where that philosophy has gotten us in the last year. And we've done some really cool things. But I want to talk a little bit about the tenets that we decided to anchor our product around. So when we launched EKS, we decided that we were going to anchor around four things. The first is that we wanted EKS to support production workloads across a variety of customer business types, from small, medium, to big enterprise workloads. And that means that we bring our operations, our security, our scalability expertise in operating Kubernetes and bring that so that any customer, any size of workload can make use of EKS. And one of the first things that we also did is we concluded that EKS is going to be Kubernetes. We weren't going to change something. We weren't going to do anything special that was different from the community. What our customers told us is that they loved Kubernetes and they wanted to see all of their favorite features and have that experience work. And what better way to provide that than Kubernetes itself? And we also want to be good community citizens here and stick with a native upstream experience. And that means there's no real special sauce in EKS. That any changes we make to Kubernetes, we want to contribute back into the community. And we learned a lot at AWS, providing reliable, secure, and scalable container orchestration, and we want to bring that same learning, and we've really brought that same learning over the last 2 years, right, to operating and maintaining Kubernetes. We also want to make sure that our AWS services stay well integrated to Kubernetes, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that and talk about how we're going to keep evolving EKS to work better and better with AWS so that you can really consume the cloud and get the full power of the cloud out of AWS, out of your Kubernetes on AWS. And really when we boil this all down, our mission and our vision is for customers to have everything that they need to build and run Kubernetes clusters in a single place. So the vision here is that you can create a cluster in a single command with all the compute resources, tools, and control that you need to run your application. You can get ongoing information like logs, performance data, and health alerts that give you complete control and a peace of mind. And we really believe in smart automation that lets you take advantage of the building blocks that you need without the ones that you don't to build powerful, mission-critical applications. And we're always going to bias towards giving you the tools that you need with the right level of automation that lets you build even faster. And the best thing is that we're not even waiting to get started. We have so much to share with you, and I'm really excited. There's so many ways that we're investing to give you the building blocks of the future through EKS. So let's dive in. I don't have time today to cover everything that we're working on in great depth, and there's so much that we're working on, but I want to give you a flavor of what's coming up and what we're thinking about. Some of this stuff is going to come sooner, and some of it is going to come later, and some of it is actually here right now. So, okay, let's take a look at some of these items. So I'm going to go through each of these and talk a little bit about all the initiatives that are kind of going on that support these items. So the first thing that we want to do with EKS is we want to give you access to the latest software. And the change that we're making is we're going to follow the community here. We're actually going to adopt this a little bit early, and we're going to go from supporting 3 versions at a time to supporting 4 versions at a time. So this is a change that's coming over the next few months here in the Kubernetes community, and we're making this change today. We've actually already made this change. This is here right now. We're going to be supporting 4 versions at any given time with Amazon EKS. The second thing for the latest software is making sure that we are up to date with what the community is shipping. And to date, EKS has scaled so rapidly. We've been building massive amounts of infrastructure to make sure that the Kubernetes we vend is secure, that it's functional, it's operational, it's battle tested and ready to operate at high scale. And that's meant that at times we've been a good amount of time behind upstream. I'm not going to lie. We haven't always been as close as we want to be, but our goal here is to be at least 100 days from upstream Kubernetes to really track with the upstream project. And you're going to see us get closer to that goal and start to achieve that goal over the next 6 months. And then finally, and this one is a little bit farther out, if you can't tell as it kind of gets gray at the bottom, these are things that are sort of farther out, but we've realized that it's really important to trust the software that you're running. And that means that you don't just trust who's actually writing that code, and you don't just trust the community, but you actually trust that that's going to run the way that you expect it to run, where you expect it to run, and when you expect it to run, right? So there has to be a good testing framework on the platform. And the reality is that community software and different operational tools are all tested and validated in lots of different ways. Usually in the way that whoever has built them sees fit, for their use case or for whatever use case that community happens to build. And so, mainline projects like Kubernetes tend to have really, really good test cases and good test coverage. But as you get into some of the other add-ons and operational tools, test coverage is not always so robust, and it's not always so guaranteed. And so we're really excited to be working on an effort to provide AWS validated images, AWS validated charts, to actually give you software that we've run and tested on Kubernetes clusters on AWS and vend that to you in a secure, signed way so that you know exactly what you're getting and you know that it's tested and that it works. The next thing that we think is really going to be important is giving you more speed and scale. And so there's a few ways that we're going to do this, and I'll talk through some of them. The first is with what we call vertical control plane scaling. And this is a feature that you're never going to see in the API. You're probably not going to see in the documentation, but this is something completely behind the scenes. And the idea behind control plane scaling is that we want you to have a seamless cluster performance all the way from 0 to 5,000 nodes or more, right? So we want to have consistent performance all the way up the scaling ladder, and the way we're going to do that is be vertically scaling the compute infrastructure that powers the cluster control plane behind the scenes, and automatically doing that for you. Today that is a semi-manual process, and so we're really excited to be working on this, and we're going to be rolling out this change over the next few months and testing it and making it more and more performant. So if you're running really big clusters, you'll welcome this and you'll be excited about this. And if you're not, then you can know that if you ever do start to run bigger and bigger clusters, then you're going to see really solid performance as the clusters scale. The next thing here is what we call CNI prefix delegation, and this is using a new VPC feature called prefix delegation that helps to assign more IP addresses to nodes. And so this allows you to have a higher density of pods on every single EC2 instance. And so this is a really exciting feature. You're also going to see this one coming out in the future here, and we're just pumped about this. Also coming is faster cluster starts. We have plans to significantly reduce the start time of Amazon EKS clusters and make them much more performant for development and testing use cases where you need a cluster quickly to run your applications, whether that's just general use or also through a pipeline or some kind of automated process. And then finally is extra large clusters. Today the Kubernetes community tested maximum is about 5,000 nodes, or I think about 60,000 objects that you can have on a cluster before things start to kind of break down and don't necessarily work with a really high degree of performance. And so we intend to smash that. We intend to go way beyond that and give you the ability to run really large clusters if you have the need to. We also want to give you simpler workflows, and there's a lot of things we're doing around this is to help simplify your workflows as an operator or as a user of Kubernetes. So the first thing that we're going to be working on this year is what we call EKS add-ons, and this is effectively allowing you to start and stop and update the operational software, the add-on software that runs as part of your Kubernetes cluster directly through the EKS API. And so with EKS add-ons, you can take those validated images, that software that's been tested and built by AWS, and you can have that applied to your cluster directly through the EKS API, and you can keep that up to date through the API. And what that means is that you can go from starting a cluster to using a cluster, actually running your application on a cluster in a single step without having to worry about installing lots of other software and making sure that it's all set up. The second thing that we're working on for simpler workflows is a feature that we call external access control. And effectively what this is it's an API through EKS that allows you to configure the IAM to RBAC mappings within the cluster. So today, when you start the cluster, the user who starts the cluster with their IAM role, that becomes the root user on the cluster. And if you want to change that, you have to log into the cluster, you have to configure the Kubernetes auth map to change which IAM roles can have different RBAC permissions within the cluster. So our plan is to actually abstract this out into an API. So sort of like with EKS add-ons, you can configure all the different access control permissions on the cluster in a single step when you create the cluster or through the API after the cluster is created. Next, to really help enable workflows, we're working on tag propagation. So this helps with both security and also with cost allocation by being able to tag the cluster at the root level, so tag the actual EKS cluster object, and have those tags flow and propagate out to the different resources that are created and used by the cluster. So things like EC2 instances, EBS volumes, load balancers, etc. As part of add-ons, we're planning to integrate GitOps into our cluster. So GitOps is a really important methodology to us. We see this as really the best practice for how to configure and manage clusters, especially in production. And so having integrated GitOps to EKS clusters is crucial for us so that you can come to EKS, you can start a cluster, you can have a GitOps CD engine, something like Flux, already installed on the cluster, connected to a repository, and instantly populate that cluster with all the stuff on that repository. This allows you to really quickly start clusters and to scale clusters for different use cases in different regions and different accounts, or just scale clusters horizontally as needed. And part of that, we're working on what we like to call immutable cluster tooling. So the idea that your cluster is more of an ephemeral object. It's something that you instantiate, it's something that you use, but it's not something that you care and you nurture and becomes a very high value object. It's something that you can easily recreate and you can roll back, and you can, if something goes wrong with the cluster, you can just as easily create a new one and easily move applications from one cluster to another. This is an idea that we have big plans around. It's a little bit farther out for implementation, but we're super excited about the possibilities for global and horizontal scale that this feature will enable. Next, we're really interested in empowering development teams. So we want to make it easier to develop on Kubernetes than ever before. One of the ways that we're doing that is with the CDK for Kubernetes, which allows you to use common programming languages like JavaScript, TypeScript, and Python, and actually use those languages to define objects and to share the best practices that you have for your Kubernetes applications in code. And then that code, using the CDK, actually generates or synthesizes out into Kubernetes standard YAML that can be applied to any cluster anywhere. So for developers that are more used to writing in code than in YAML config, we think this is a really powerful tool. Next, we're planning to build what we call a Kubernetes management console, and actually giving you a full point-and-click view into your cluster right inside of the AWS console. And then finally, we're working really hard on AWS Kubernetes training, the best practices and training courses that give you and your team the resources that you need to build and run production Kubernetes on AWS. And it's really also important that we give you the right compute in the right place, right? So all of this, Kubernetes runs on compute, and we're committed to expanding the options for compute on AWS and EKS. So first we have Fargate. We have a lot of really awesome features planned for Fargate. We recently announced savings plans for EKS Fargate. We have lots of new regions for Fargate planned. And there's a whole host of other features that are coming that makes Fargate easier to use and meets more use cases for things like monitoring and logging and load balancing for production applications. We're introducing more support for ARM instances, for the ARM Graviton instances and Inferentia instances. And we're expanding the ability for EKS to work with hybrid solutions. So EKS is already GA with Outposts, it's GA with Wavelengths, and we plan to go GA with local zones as well. So all the different AWS hybrid computing options, we plan for EKS to be there and to be a service that you can use with a hybrid AWS options. And then finally, regions. EKS is in almost every single global region that AWS offers around the world, and we plan to keep that going. We plan to be available everywhere that you want to run. We're going to make EKS available for you. And powerful networking is also important. Kubernetes is networking. So much of Kubernetes is networking. And so we're continuing to innovate with the AWS App Mesh team, building deeper and deeper integrations into that product in EKS. The App Mesh controller is really only on day one. We're really excited that we GA'd that product earlier this year. And we plan to make this even a more integrated experience in the AWS console and through the EKS APIs to make it easier to manage your mesh directly from Kubernetes. And then also, this is a major initiative for us is support for IPv6. And we think that IPv6 is not only important for networking, but it's also important for scale and for density and really solving the challenges that Kubernetes brings to networks. And we actually think IPv6 is going to be a really big enabler for our Kubernetes customers. And we're really excited to be able to announce this in the future. And then finally, it's giving you everything that the cloud has to offer within your cluster, right? Building you a united cloud. And there's a few different ways that we do that. So integrations through CSI drivers. working on CSI driver integrations for services like S3 and AWS Secrets Manager, allowing you to use things like OIDC to authenticate into your clusters. And also the AWS Controllers for Kubernetes, which is a new project that we're building that allows you to use Kubernetes to manage AWS resources, to actually provision and manage AWS resources. And I'm really excited about this project because we actually have a whole session on this today, and they asked me to spend a few minutes talking a little bit more about the AWS Controllers for Kubernetes, which effectively, this is a set of controllers and CRDs for AWS services that you can use to instantiate and use AWS resources directly within your cluster. And what's cool is that by using AWS hosted resources, you can get the same functionality within your cluster as if you ran those same resources yourself, but improve reliability and improve uptime at any scale that you want to go to. And because these are custom resources within your cluster and custom Kubernetes controllers, you can actually use the native Kubernetes API to define the AWS resources that your applications need directly within the cluster. And the team that's built this has done it in a really, really clever way by automatically generating the custom resource code and the controller code from the AWS SDKs. And this ensures that the controllers are always up to date with the latest features and functionality. And we're really excited to announce that the AWS Controllers for Kubernetes is, as of today, in developer preview. So we have a session on this coming up a little bit later. Our lead engineer, Jay Pipes, is going to be talking about this. And we're really thrilled to announce this project and to have this available. So you can check this out on GitHub, github.com/AWS/AWS Controllers Kates. And this is a fantastic project that's just getting started today, and we encourage you to check this out. Okay, so that was a lot. We clearly have a lot going on. You know, the pace of innovation we have, our commitment to upstream, production grade, easy to use Kubernetes in the cloud, and our vision for this future, this isn't something that we came up with on our own. I promise you, I couldn't come up with all this sitting at home at my desk, you know, staring at my webcam. Every improvement that we make, every feature that we build is shaped by the needs of you. It's shaped by the needs of our customers. And there's really, you know, there's honestly no point for us to build something that you don't find useful and that doesn't improve your ability to build and innovate on behalf of your customers. So I know this has been a theme, but you know, at AWS, you come first. This is the idea, is that we innovate on your behalf, and when we say that, we really mean it. So all of that stuff that I just talked about is fantastic, and we're building this, and we're thrilled to build it. But you know, it doesn't mean that, you know, this is exactly everything that we're going to build, and we encourage you to tell us what we should build next. And we encourage you to visit the EKS roadmap on GitHub regularly. We have a public roadmap, and you can stay up to date with what we're working on. You can give us feedback and propose new ideas for things we should be working on. You can get notified when new features ship, and you can try out developer previews. So really encourage you to check this out, github.com/AWS/containers roadmap. EKS issues and requests are tagged EKS, and you can also see requests for other container services like Fargate, ECR, and ECS. And there's a whole host of other services like AWS App Mesh and the like that have actually started similar open source roadmaps for their products as well on GitHub. So really encourage you to check those out and to contribute to them and to let us know what we should be building for you to make your life just a little bit easier. So I want to thank you. You know, you drive us, you get us out of bed every morning, get me out of bed every morning, you keep us up at night, and everything our team does is to really make you faster, better, more reliable, and to improve your ability to innovate on behalf of your customers. So thank you very much. Okay, and now I think we have a little bit of time for some Q&A.